Welcome to the Be Better broadcast, where we bring you tips and strategies and techniques to help you to live an extraordinary life and to help you achieve self-mastery, both personally and professionally. We bring you a ton of experts and special guests on this show to talk about really how to conquer life, right? How to achieve your goals, how to create the vision, how to create the goal, how to go after it, how to take action. But there's one thing that we haven't ever talked about in this show, and it's the thing, right? It's the one thing that will actually determine whether you're going to continue on and continue making progress towards what it is that you want, even in the face of adversity, even when you are encountering challenges. That is where this aspect comes into play, and that is the idea of mental toughness. And we've already got Mr. Joseph Gonzalez here with us this morning. Joseph, it is a pleasure to have you here. Thanks so much for tuning in. We're going to be talking all about mental toughness with probably the best person we could ever have a conversation with about this. Today, we're talking with Dr. Rob Bell. And for those who don't know Dr. Rob Bell, he has written many books on this topic. So he is a sports psychology coach, author, and speaker. He has spoken to the NFL, the NSCA, PGA, Marriott, and Walgreens, and has written 7 books on mental toughness. His 7th book is right here, Puke Rally. It's not about the setback. It's about the comeback. Dr. Rob has worked with 3 different winners on the PGA Tour and has served as the mental coach for University of Notre Dame, Indy 11, an Indy 500 champion, an Olympic silver medalist, an ATP champion, and the USTA National Champion. This guy's worked with a lot of champions. Dr. Bell has caddied over 20 events on the PGA and LPGA tours. He's completed an Ironman, several marathons, and a 50-mile trail run. This fall, he will complete a 100-mile trail run. He has a podcast titled 15 Minutes of Mental Toughness, where he interviews experts on mental health, mental toughness, and their Hinge Moments, which we're going to dive into. A former university professor, Dr. Bell has published over a dozen journal articles and has been featured on ESPN, the Golf Channel, Runner's World, New York Times, and Stack Magazine, and he's a graduate from the University of Tennessee, Temple University, and Shepherd University. As you can see, he is the most qualified person we could ever speak to on mental toughness. So Dr. Rob Bell, it is a pleasure to have you on the broadcast, my friend.
Wow, Brandon, thanks so much for the intro, buddy. I appreciate it, man.
So you can never go through an introduction that mentions a 100-mile trail run without immediately asking what the hell goes into a 100-mile trail run. So let me ask you this. When is this trail run? That's my first question.
Yeah, so that race is October 9th. It's northern Indiana, so it's Chain of Lakes State Park, and it's basically just 4 25-mile loops. So, I mean, I've done the race course a couple of times. I ran it at night, so I've got that kind of memorized, and that's when the race is. And, you know, I mean, and you mentioned it, right? Like, I've done an Ironman, and I think we hold up the Ironman as like, well, that's like a real gold standard in terms of like racing and competing. I'm not saying it's easy, right? It's not. It's very, very difficult to do. But this training doesn't even compare to, well, the Ironman training doesn't even compare to this, because
Wow.
the amount of, you know, the time is about the same, but, you know, with Ironman, you can kind of switch up the disciplines. You know what I mean? With this, it's one discipline, but the level of details that go into, you know, trying to accomplish it and, you know, do your best at it is just, it's mind blowing. So it's like, I've been in scientist mode all through training, just because it's like, boy, this ointment works a whole lot better on your feet. You know what I mean? It's like, this is this chafing right here. This food, you know, has stayed down, you know, this hydration piece. So, I mean, there's just so many pieces to it. And I'm not the best like details guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm a big idea and let's go get it sort of thing. I'm a ready, shoot, aim. But with this, you have to really like dial in the preparation and everything that goes into it. And, you know, if the process is more important than the product too, I think that's what I've just really been trying to enjoy on this, is that process. And, you know, a lot of it was a lot of downs. It really wasn't like great training periods up until pretty recent. And so, it was trying to embrace the suck and to really, stay positive during those moments. And that was a tough part.
So in those training moments that you just mentioned, the training moments that weren't as great compared to what they are now, what
Yeah.
was the switch that you had to flip in order to take those from not so great to what they are now?
Well, I think the big thing, man, it's like I'm a cold weather guy. Like I would take 0 degrees, really 0 degrees over like 90 degrees. And so, I mean, again, I thought like growing up too as a kid, man, like I love the heat. And I always say that in our family, like we're mutters, right? Like the worse the weather, the better. Doesn't matter how bad it is. But the heat, man, it was like, so some of these runs in May, June, and July, the big key, man, is I did not have my hydration down. And, I went and got a dietitian to be able to help me out and walk me through this and how much, sodium and potassium I was losing and how much really needed to be replenished. And the thing about hydration in particular is like once you get in deficit, like you're not catching up. You know what I mean? And that's the scary part is you get really bad, you're not catching up to that thing. So it's like, Puke and Rally, it's a great tagline, man. It's a great book, but I didn't want to be like the scarlet letter that I was wearing around. But every training run, man, was Puke and Rally. And
Wow.
I mean, there was a point where there was like 16 runs that were over 20 miles or more, and I puked in like 14 of them. You,
Wow.
you know what I mean?
And the
So it was like,
training runs.
yeah, training runs, man. That's how it was, bud. And I mean, and again, there's so much like every training, like a marathon mentality is, yeah, you train and you have your pace that you're going to do, but you can kind of push it. You know what I mean? With this, you have to slow down. Like that's the bigger key, man, is can you run slower? And that right away, that whole mental shift was even more difficult. So the fact that look, I was pushing it too hard. My heart rate was too up there. It was in the 80s with 90% humidity, and I'm dehydrated. Yeah, there's only one way that you're going to get out of that one.
What is your outcome for running these types of races? Is it to win? Is it to just do it? Like what's your outcome here?
Yeah, I'm a middle of the pack guy. Um, the people that win these, um, boy, man, I mean, they're just flying. You know, what I mean, they are fast and really fast. Um, the outcome is to enjoy it. Outcome is enjoy it. I know when that day comes, I know I'm going to finish because they will drag me off that course or I'm going to finish. But I want to be able to enjoy those. And that's the thing. It's like, if you're hating life, and I'm not saying I mean, there's going to be dark periods, right? Like you meet yourself, whatever that weakness is that you have, whether in your mind or your body, that's basically going to show up that day. It just really is, right? Because when fatigue makes cowards of us all, and that's the part, right? Is our mind is going to try and trick us into things and take us to those dark places. So there are going to be dark periods, but man, I really want to just enjoy that peace, and
Wow.
that's the main goal, man.
And the peace happens in the process of it once you complete it. Like when do you experience that feeling?
Well, man, I've been trying to do it like, one of the training runs, man, was literally because that's what, if the process is more important than the product, then it's up to us to make sure that we're enjoying the process. And so one of the training runs, man, was at night and I was running in pitch dark, with the headlamp on and, running the course. And on one of the pieces, I'm going downhill and there's like a dozen eyeballs that are staring at me. You know what I'm saying? It's like a cartoon. And it's like, it's all vermin, you think, but like your mind goes to, a really funny place right away. And it's like, um, that's the part like, man, can we enjoy that?
Wow.
And the fact of being able to run and like there are a lot of people that were camping out that night, man. I stopped and asked somebody for like a piece of pizza because they had like, and I tell you what, man, that Pizza Hut pizza was like the best tasting pizza I ever had in my life. You know what I mean? And I still had like 13 miles to go, but it's like those sort of experiences that are so enjoyable. And the fact of, I think in these type of races, like it's the easiest part to be able to love on other people because other people that are doing really, really difficult stuff, man. And I've had so many experiences where people have been able to help me, and it's made the world a difference, man. And the fact of, I want to be able to be in the situation where I can help other people during these races. Because if I'm not okay, like if I'm really struggling, I'm not gonna be able to help anybody else out, And then that's sort of the goal. And I think that's the piece, man, is being able to enjoy that. The outcome comes and it goes, man. It comes and it goes, but it's staying in the moment and being able to enjoy it. That's the goal.
Yeah, well said. One thing out of many that I respect about you is you don't just write books about the topic, you're out there doing it. And I think there's a lot of fluff out there in this personal development and mental strength and toughness arena of people who write the book. They're great people, right? You'd have great conversations. Their principles and philosophies are there, but they found those from books themselves, and then they just write another book to carry that on. But you write the book, but you're still doing this and you're still enjoying this process like you're talking about. Now, my question for you, there's a lot of people listening, whether they're salespeople, solopreneurs, whatever it might be. Mental toughness to them might mean, okay, I'm going to wake up at this time, even when I don't feel like it. I'm going to swing my legs out of bed. I'm going to perform at my peak for this presentation that I'm giving, all these different things. You're out here running 100-mile trail runs, right? So in the case of this trail run, let's talk about mental toughness and where it comes into play, because a lot of this preparation that you've mentioned to me is physical, right? Knowing when you're going to chafe, how to prevent that, how to avoid it. I'm sure that's not possible, but the ointments that you use on your feet that you're talking about, the hydration, a lot of that's physical preparation, right? You going out there, running the trail, seeing the eyes on you. So where does the mental toughness aspect come into play with that? Is it before the race? And if so, how do you apply mental toughness before you're even in the arena?
I think so. Mental toughness, and I'm glad you mentioned like who's listening to me, because I mean my philosophy is that everyone is an athlete, right? Our office is just different, and we got to be on top of the details. We have to master the simple. I think that's the big thing, man, is mastering the simple. The mental toughness, always one way or another, it's always going to get back to our preparation. Like I'm a guy that needs to be prepared, and I need to know that I'm prepared. I'm not the guy that needs to over prepare, because, I think then, there's the confidence isn't there. I think the mental toughness like goes into a preparation manner. It's really, really simple. It's just not easy to do, right? But are we staying in the moment? That's the biggest thing that we can do. Because where does our mind go, man? Our mind wants to go to the finish. Our mind wants to go to how bad it sucks right now. We want that out. And when our mind gives us that out, right? Like, what do? Man, we take it. It's all the time, because if we have an option of whether or not I can stay in bed or I can get out and, hit the trail at 5 a.m., which one am I going to do? You know what I'm saying? Like, well, it's more comfortable to stay in bed. So it's like those little things, those little battles that take place. And when we want to stop, can we just keep moving? And that's really it, man. It's just about staying in the moment. So, I mean, you have your habits that you're going to build, and it's, staying disciplined. But then the other part, and I really just always get back to it, man. It's just about enjoying that experience and going through that. Because if we can't enjoy that experience, no outcome, no trophy, no amount of money that we're going to get is going to fill that. It's going to give us that temporary high, right? It's going to be like eating that cake. It's going to be great. But then we go into the next day, and then we go into the next week, man. And that's the part. It's like we have to be able to enjoy what we're doing. And then the outcome just becomes sort of a byproduct of like what we're doing, right? So if we're like climbing that mountain, man, we're climbing that mountain. Once we reach the top of that mountain, we got to come back down. You know what I mean? And it's like most deaths on Mount Everest, man, happen on the way down. So I really believe it's staying in that moment, and it's enjoying the process about what we're trying to do. I think that's where that mental toughness takes place. And it's like, it's not, sorry to belabor the point, right? But it's not all or nothing. I think too often we look at it as like, okay, that person's mentally tough, that person's not. I was mentally tough here, I wasn't. It's more of like in what kind of situation and how much, right? Like being able to let go of mistakes. I'm horrible at that, man. Brother, I wish I was good at it, right? I'm horrible at it, right? My son is fantastic at it. The discipline piece, yeah, I'm really good at that. I'm really good at not giving up. The confidence, okay. But it's like these are a whole bunch of different areas that when we find out like what mental skill we're best at, put us in situations, man, that can exemplify that and make it rise to the top. I think that's where mental toughness comes into play.
Oh, well said, man. Well said. So I remember when you wrote about the Everest experience and how most people who die hiking Mount Everest, it happens on the way down. And when you wrote that, I was thinking about when I hike a mountain over here in upstate New York, which is even like Mount Marcy, which is the tallest mountain. That's nowhere compared to an Everest trip, like several weeks. Unbelievable. But I mean, the principle's the same because I always me and my friends have a joke. There's always that point of us hiking the mountain where we're done with the mountain. We're like, okay, I'm over it now. Like I'm done with it, right? I can't wait to get the hell off of this mountain. Sometimes it happens on the way up, but usually it happens. And I like how you wrote too. You don't stay on the summit too long, right? Like,
Right.
I'm that way. Like I'm thinking the whole time, I can't wait to get to the summit. Can't wait to see the view. And then I'm up there and 5 minutes into it, my friends want to hang out for like 20, 30 minutes, maybe an hour. And I'm like, I'm ready to go. Can we get back down the mountain now? Because I'm done with the mountain. And that mindset shift, when you say to yourself, I'm done with this, you're not in the present moment. Like
Mhm.
what you just said, because I'm just thinking, okay, just one step after the other step. Let's get down here. Let's get back to the car. What am I doing tonight? When really, what if I just slowed down and instead decided to be present? I think that that's super important. Now, I've never, and I'm just going to be very transparent, I respect the hell out of people who do the Ironmans, they do the triathlons, they do the Tough Mudders, they run trail runs, 50Ks, 100-mile runs. I've never had that ambition or want to do that. And to me, it's like absolutely unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And my question to you is, why do you do these runs? Why test yourself physically like this? And I guess this can go into how'd you get into these things, but why do you do it still?
Yeah, it's a great question, man. I mean, I always think the first why is because I can. And there are a lot of people that cannot. And I try not to take that for granted, brother, that, man, I'm able-bodied and there are a lot. I mean,
Mm,
when you're doing these races, even JFK 50 miler, and you see people that aren't able-bodied and they're doing it, you're like, what am I complaining about? So
wow.
that's number one. And number two is, and I love this one, right? But it's like Mae West said, you you only get one shot at life. But if you do it right, once is enough. And I think, sometimes we get in this mindset that it's a dress rehearsal. And it's not, man. It's anything but the dress rehearsal, man. We got one shot. And I want to suck the nectar out of life and do everything that's possible to enjoy it. Because, FUN, man, big capital letters. I mean, I love that stuff. And this is fun. I mean, I love the training. I love getting after it. I love being able to compete. I love the camaraderie and the social aspect that you have to all these things. I think, again, it's the most purest time that we can love on one another is when we're doing really, really tough stuff. And whatever that tough stuff is going to be. So, that's the basis. The second part, and I always say like your why has to make you cry,
Hmm.
right? If it doesn't, it's not your why, man. It's not deep enough. And there was, and this is really obscure part, right? But it's like Rocky 2, in the movie Rocky 2, when he is carrying the buckets of spit and stuff like that, like he already had the main fight, he's not fighting, and he's trying to help out at the gym. And Mickey was asking him, right, his trainer, is like, why are you out? Why are you doing this? Why are you here? He said, man, I just need to be around it. And I think when we know what that purpose and that passion is, we just got to be around it. It's just who we are as an individual. And I think when we can find that, whatever that is going to be, then real meaning and fulfillment comes out in life. And so that's the other part. And I also say this one, man, and the big one, our why changes. My why from 5 years ago might not be the same why that I have right now, right? The why from last year might not be the same. Pandemic changed a whole lot of our different whys. Mine is definitely my kids, man, my family. I want them to be able to witness that, look, anything is possible if you're willing to put forth the effort and willing to put forth the work to it. And I want them to be able to see that stuff and to be able to have them. witness it and be a part of it, it's big, man. I try to have my kids on some of the cool down runs. I try to have them join me with it, whether that's
Wow.
riding their bike or anything. And that's the part where it's like um, their piece that goes into helping me fulfill this is a huge part of the why.
Now, they must have asked you why you do this too. So is your answer to them the exact answer that you just gave me, or do you
It
say
is, man.
something different?
Yeah, no question, dude. It's probably not as polished, you know what I mean? But I tell them the same thing. It's like, look, you can do anything that you want, but you're going to have to be willing to pay the price. You're going to have to be willing to sacrifice for it, and it's going to be harder than you think. That's the thing. It's going to be harder than you think, but it will be worth it if you never give up and if you keep persevering through it.
That's the truth. The reason why I wanted to ask you about the 100-mile run was because in chapter 1, you talk about the 50K trail run that you did, and which is 32 miles for those listening. And I really wanted to start off with the 100-mile, because the first chapter is all about you puking, like literally and figuratively in this race, right? You started the race. And by the way, how long ago was that race roughly?
I think that race was probably 5 years ago now.
5 years. Okay. Now that's astounding to me, because you go into this 32-mile race. You're currently training for a 100-mile trail race. And this first one, you didn't finish it first, right? You ran a large portion of it. And I don't want to give away the whole story, because I want everyone to read the first chapter, because it's a very powerful way to start the book. You went home because you couldn't physically finish it at the point that you were at. And your family brought you home, right? And you mentioned, I don't want to go too much into it, but you mentioned how you felt as if you failed them in a way when you were in that van on the way back home, and you were laying there in bed and you were just thinking to yourself, all these thoughts and this self-talk in your mind was like, I gotta get back there. And you told your family, I have to go back. And they thought you were crazy, and they brought you back, and you finished the race, right? You finished the freaking race. So that's 32 miles, right? So my question to you is, Dr. Rob Bell 5 years ago versus who you are now, training for a 100-mile race. What's different about you now that's allowing you to go further on a more difficult track or terrain and finish this, when at first you struggled to finish the first one? Is it physical? Is it mental? What's different about you now?
I think the training is obviously a big part about it. And I think you set it up nicely, man. It was well played there. The mental piece, we really do, right? We set the limits on what it is that we want to accomplish, and we set that in our mind. And once that doubt and negativity, puts it in there, right? It's just a threshold, and we put a ceiling on what it is that we can accomplish, what it is that we can do. And there's the saying now is like the 200-mile race is like the new 100. And the 100-mile race is like the new marathon. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, to be able to train for it, to be able to commit myself to it, like I keep repeating, man, but that's what it gets back to, is that. And I love the challenge. I love to be able to challenge myself, man, and see what's possible. So that race right there, though, what that really proved is that I won't give up. That one right there. But when we're going back to like the lodge, because again, you talk about dehydration, you talk about in a bad spot, man. It was not a good spot. It was puking a lot. But when my son said, daddy had to quit, like asking the question, right? I'm a real innocent 5-year-old boy, because one of the things we talk about, man, is that you never give up no matter what. And so when he said, well, daddy had to quit, how do you answer that one? Right. And the thing is, man, is we're going to be in situations, man, where even we don't show up well that day and we don't finish that day strong. Can we show up the next day? You know what I'm saying? And that's the part about being able to rally that becomes so, so important, man. And it's being able to test ourselves, being able to challenge ourselves, knowing that along this process, man, that we're going to fail. We're going to fail, and we're going to fail hard. But it's not about the setback, man. That's why it's about that comeback. Can we keep coming back the next day and keep showing up? And I remember talking to a pretty famous boxing coach, And I said, man, how do you know, like, when you've got a fighter that's mentally tough? And he said, when they really get, the shit kicked out of them and they show up the next day. It's about showing back up, and that's really it. So if we can master that, I believe that every single one of us will reach those goals that we set out for ourselves. And, it's just those moments, man. I think it's building upon our past experiences and building upon the training and building upon the mindset to get us in these frame of minds that, look, anything is possible. And I marinate my mind, man, with so many different documentaries of people that have done some crazy stuff, man, weird stuff, and I'm like, wow, man, that's impressive. But once we start to marinate our mind with that stuff, Brandon, I don't know how you are, but I start thinking, it's like, why not me? Right?
Wow.
Why not now? And if not now, when? And if not you, then who? And we answer those, not in a rhetorical sense. We put ourselves in the frame of mind that we need to be in.
Damn. You just raised your belief bar. That first race really showed you what you could do. And 5 years later, you're running three times that, like literally more than 3 times that.
And I got the record, brother. I got the record. No one is going to beat the slow time that we have for that, right? Taking a 2-hour respite. I've got my own page of, for where all the finishes go. I got my own page for how slow that time was, man. And it's probably the best finish, right? I've never finished DFL, man, but in this one I did. But I did beat the people that didn't finish that day. And not that it's about other people, but it's just the example, man.
And the thing is about those races is no one is asking you, oh, what place did you finish in? Right? When you tell someone you just ran 32 miles on this trail run in this blistering heat or whatever it was, and you're running 100 miles on the trail, no one's thinking about first place, second place, third place, except for the people who are running it and who are in it maybe. But to everyone else, it's just like, damn, like you did that, you finished that, you didn't give up and you went back, you rallied. That's unbelievable. And I think that relates to every part of life. Like for those who are leaders in companies, I remember like the first time I ever spoke to a group of people, I was terrified. I was sweating. I was clamoring over my words. I didn't really know what to say. And I even said, I'm really nervous to talk to you guys right now. And they're like, dude, we've worked with you for years. Like, you don't need to be nervous. Just, get your message through. And now I can do that in my sleep because my bar has been raised. Just like within the last 5 years, your bar has been raised. So I'm all about the practical. Okay. Because I want to know what's going on in your mind in those moments where they drop you back off at that trail, right? Mm-hmm. To finish the freaking race. Even now to this day, when that part of your mind is like, why the hell am I out here? Why am I doing this? Like, do you have self-talk that you say to yourself that pushes you through? Like, what do you say to yourself, or what do you see in your mind's eye? What are these go-to triggers or strategies that you have to keep yourself going, especially when the going gets tough?
Yeah. And it's a great question, man, because I think we have to have that stuff. It's about having a plan.
Yeah.
We're going to ask ourselves that from time to time. Why am I out here? Why am I doing this? That is a question that needs to be answered before we're in that environment. Because if we're trying to answer it, right, hands up in there, why am I out here? Now it's rhetorical, and now we're trying to play, mental gymnastics, and then it gets really difficult. The biggest thing for me, and I'm not saying this works for everybody. Some people are like real mantra people and stuff like that, and you can rely on those things. But mine is being able to find a rhythm, some sort of rhythm, whatever it is. And, because again, a physical guy, even if it's a limp shuffle sort of thing that's going on, find that rhythm, and you just make it to the tree. That's all you got to do. You just make it to the tree. Make it to the damn tree, Rob. You make it to the tree. All right, man, what's the next piece? All right, make it to the road. Make it to the road. All right, man, make it to that fence. And that's it, and that's the piece about trying to stay in the moment, man, that works. And every workout ends, every race ends. If we got to think about the end, sometimes it can get overwhelming. But all we got to do is just make it to the tree. You make it to the tree, you set another goal. And that's the piece when it really gets difficult, man, is being able to set that. And that's why I like to know like what that race is. You set that mental piece. And then the other piece that I do, Brandon, and this is sort of like a trick, is I think to myself, well, at least you're not back at that fence. I mean, at least you passed that fence.
Wow.
So I'll think about like 2 miles ago and be like, hey, you're not there anymore. You know what I mean? And look how far you've come. And so it's those sort of things, man. I'll basically do just set that short-term goal. And the other piece is, man, well, think about how far you've come.
Wow.
And those are the ones, man, that really kind of dial me in. And then just with the rhythm. And then there's a whole bunch of different stuff, man. Like the little tricks. I mean, yeah, man, I'm gonna think about the person that fired me. Yeah, I'm gonna think about that one coach that didn't hire me. And that can work for a little bit of time,
Mm.
but it's like lighter fuel, right? It's not going to sustain the whole fire, but you can use it from time to time. And yeah, there's gonna be a mantra and there's gonna be songs that I'm singing in my head and all that stuff. But ultimately getting back to those strategies, man, that's the practicality of it, brother.
I absolutely love that, and I want to talk about that proving people wrong and a lighter
Mhm.
fuel, because that's one of the quotes I have here from the book that I loved. But I love that concept of, you have an outcome, you know what you're there to achieve before you're even in the course. You know why you're there, right? You know you're going to keep going no matter what, right? You're gonna rally if necessary, and I like that concept of, you have the outcome, but it's the mini goals along the way. And I think that that's really the importance of preparation. In your sense, you're running that track, like you're practicing on the track. You've split it up into segments in your mind. You know when that next tree is going to be there. You know when that next mile, the mile mark is going to be there. So you know that the tree is one mark, the road is another, and you've got this whole thing mapped out in your mind. And I think that's so important for people in business, for people in sales. Like, you've got to know your stuff. You've got to be prepared, because I'd gather you can run 100 miles on a different trail, but when you go to this one, it's going to be a whole new world, right? This is unmapped territory. So I love that idea of taking that big goal, splitting it up into mini goals. Like, I just got to get to the next tree. I just got to get to the road. And then after you do it, you're like, oh, look, I did that. Now I just have to get here. And then you get there, and then you're like, okay, I got here. Now I just got to get there. So it's just it's just the way you think about it. Because I even look at my calendar sometimes, and I'm not running 100 miles on the trail, but I'll have like 3 big presentations in a day. And I look ahead and I think about that, and I'm like, damn, like, is my energy going to be there? Am I going to be in the right frame of mind, right? Am I prepared enough for these? And I start to have all those thoughts that we all have. And what I do is I just think, I'm just going to get to the first presentation and take it from there. Okay, I got through the first. Now let me just get through the second one and perform at my best. Okay, I got through that one. And then it starts to build that belief and build that confidence as well. So I love those strategies.
3 presentations a day, man. You're the Iron Man, buddy. That's big, man.
Hey, man, in this virtual world, you can be everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, in one day, you can be in several different countries, many different states. Like, I'm talking to you right now. We're hundreds of miles apart, right? So it's just the beautiful thing about the virtual world. Now, you had a quote in the book. I want to talk about that, proving people wrong, because this was me. The quote that I loved in your book, Puke Rally, is, the real danger of proving people wrong is that there is often no turn-off switch. When our energy is directed externally towards the negativity, the torpedo starts looking for other targets. If there is no immediate target, then the anger can turn inward, and soon it affects our own mindset and those close to us. And that was me, man. I was in sales, and people told me I wasn't going to do well. They're like, oh, there's no way you're going to be as great as these other guys who've been in sales for 10 years. And I had that chip on my shoulder, and I was like, I'm going to prove them wrong. And I did. And I was top on the team for the first 2.5 to 3 years that I was there. No one had any idea why I was top on the team. I just always attributed it to being a natural salesperson. But looking back, I wanted to prove people wrong, man. But where that went wrong for me is, it was all about proving people wrong. And then when I was at the top consistently, I just kept asking myself, is this it? Like, is this what it's about? Just constantly grinding, constantly being on the top. Like, what is the reason for doing all of this? And for me, I found that reason, like you write about in the book, is purpose. Finally discovering a greater reason why I was doing what I was doing. And that was, I wanted to help other people now do the same thing. And I wanted to become a sales trainer. So you talk about purpose in the book in a different way than I've talked about it in the past. So my question to you is, what is purpose to you? And how can someone fine tune and discover what that is for them?
It's deep, brother. That's a good one. You set up the question so well, by the way, man. Like, you did a
Thank
really
you.
good job of that. because I'm wondering, like, man, when am I going to chime in here? Because like, and then you gave it away. It was beautiful. I mean, if you think about it, right, it's a pretty esoteric term, man, and like your purpose. And it's really, because then we talk about like happiness, like if you will do what makes you happy. And the only problem with that is, well, I could be really happy and then, have a bad oil change and then, have a bad experience or something like that. And then now I'm no longer happy. And like that's where like the goal, it just doesn't, it's not the right goal. You know what I mean? Because there are going to be a lot of ups and downs, man. It's
Mhm.
about fulfillment, fulfillment, joy, you have peace in your life. And I can't get away from this piece is that our purpose has to involve other people. If it's all about you and all about your journey and what you're trying to do and stand on the mountaintop alone and holding up the flag and planting it, and if that's what it is, it's going to leave you empty. It really is, because no matter how much money you make, no matter how many cars or houses that you have, it's going to leave you empty unless there's a stronger foundation that involves either your faith or involves other people. And when you can combine that and it becomes about other people, man, what do the best coaches do, right? The best coaches, man, they deflect all the stuff off themselves and put it on to other people in terms of like their success. Like they know they couldn't have done that without like the players, and look how well they've done. And they're giving the credit away. And that's the part. It's just, look, there's just so much more fulfillment and purpose when it's about other people. And even and like if you look at mission statements, it's got to involve other people. And once it does that, and we can always remind ourselves of that, then I think the purpose comes out.
At this point in your life, what does your purpose look like in that frame that you just
Yeah,
beautifully
it
put
does,
together?
man. I mean, in one way or another, right? It's just about helping people get to where they want to go. It's about being the best coach I can. And then it's about helping those that work with me and that are working with athletes, helping them get to where they want to go.
Do you
That's
have
as
a
simple as we can, brother. Again, I'm a simple as powerful kind of guy, man.
Yeah, no, it's very true. When you're working with an Olympic athlete or even these PGA Tour individuals, like I'm not like that versed when it comes to sports. So if I say some terms wrong, I apologize. But when you're working with these high performing individuals in general, do you have a similar framework that you go through, or is it tailored for each person individually? Like what does that look like when you're tasked to be the coach for one of these high performing people?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think so like let's just look at motivation, for instance, right? We'll just look at the mental skill of motivation. Mental motivation. How bad do you want it? Your goals, your why, your purpose. Are you willing to do whatever it takes? That's really just getting back to that basic skill of motivation. And that motivation is the building block. So it doesn't matter what the sport is going to be, that has to be there. Are you willing to do whatever it takes? That's all motivation. So that's that foundation. It varies in terms of like how that sort of manifests itself because of what the arena looks like. Everyone's an athlete. Our office is just different.
Mm.
Once that foundation's there, though, then I'm usually working on different skills, man, like confidence, the belief, the trust in yourself. I believe that we all have that confidence because if we didn't, right, if we didn't have that confidence in terms of like how much, then we wouldn't really try anything new, man. We wouldn't actually put ourselves out there if we didn't have that belief in ourselves. And so, like being curious in terms of that. Confidence is a skill we're always working on. And then if you kind of work up that pyramid with motivation at the base and then confidence, man, now we got focus. And so if confidence is king, then focus is queen. It's how the game is won. What are we focused on? Focused on this day, this moment, or are we thinking too far ahead or are we thinking too far behind? And then we're working on that mental skill. And then what are the routines and the habits and everything that we get dialed in? The way that we build our confidence is through our focus and what we're focused on. And then the last one at like the top of the pyramid, and these are all the skills I work with athletes, just kind of how it comes out. I think it's the most difficult one, and that's refocus. How well do you
Where
hold?
you focus,
Yeah, refocus.
refocus.
How well do you let go of mistakes? How well can you move on? Um, because I believe that when you let it go, it lets go of you. And that's the skill that, let's say, what we focus on reveals our level, or is how we build confidence. How we refocus just reveals our level of confidence. If you think about it and you're really watching elite athletes and they start to lose it, what is it really saying about their level of confidence? That things need to go well for them to be successful in this moment here, because it's just showing like their level of confidence. You show me an athlete that can let go of mistakes and kind of move on, move with the punch. I'll show you somebody that's got a high level of confidence and believe in themselves because they know that everything doesn't need to go my way in order for me to be successful. And that's where that skill of refocus and moving on comes into play. So those skills are always what we're working on with athletes.
Damn. Okay, so I have a person that I'm working with, and he has this goal of closing a certain number of accounts. He's really close to doing it. He's 2 accounts away, and he's really hard on himself, this individual. And it's a form of hunger, but it's also a form of maybe you're just being a little hard on yourself, like you're expecting too much from you, right? And he had a recent setback where he had like 7 appointments cancel on him in a row. And he was really down that day, man, which I understand, right? He was like, I'm literally like feeling depressed about this. And I was kind of stumped in a way, like, oh my God, because I want to help him so bad, but sometimes I don't really know how to help him. Right. And I'm like, well, keep your head up, brother. Like, do something for you today. Keep your mind on the goal, right? I didn't really know how to help him. So what would you do in a situation where someone has an idea, they know what they want, but they just keep having setback after setback after setback? How do you help that kind of person refocus?
I think, and number one, so there's 2 parts to it. Number one is, I don't know what to say to somebody that struck out with the bases loaded either. Right. I really don't. There's nothing that you can say because we want to take away that pain for them, right? We want to absorb it want to give them hope. And it's just not, it's not the right time, man. So there's nothing really that you can say that's going to take that away. The other part of it is this, and that's where it's getting back to that foundation and that belief of what I believe is that no matter how bad our situation is, no matter how bleak an outcome looks, no matter how bad the setback has been, it only takes one, right? It's only going to take one appointment to turn everything around. It takes one catch of the ball, one shot. And that's what we're getting ready for. We just don't know when that moment, that person, or that event is going to happen. But that's the importance of mental toughness. And you look back, like, what's the importance of mental toughness? Because we can kind of operate in society without having to be mentally tough. We're not going to thrive. You're not going to reach your full potential. You know what I mean? But some people don't want that stuff. You're going to remain in mediocrity, but you don't need to be really mentally tough in mediocrity, man. You can blame other people and make excuses and all that stuff. But if that is the goal about what it is that you want, only going to take one, man. That's the real importance of mental toughness.
Yeah, well said. I like that a lot. Just you might be really down right now. You might have this chain of setbacks, but it literally only takes one to change everything.
That's the hinge, man.
I love that. Let's talk about the hinge. Okay. When I read this chapter of the book, which was pretty early on in the book, I was thinking back through all of my own hinge moments in life. So I don't want to even attempt to like talk about it and say it because I know you're going to say it much better. So before I get into that, like, what is a hinge moment to you?
Yeah, you got it, man. So every door has a hinge, right? A door without a hinge is a wall. It just doesn't work. If you hear about doors opening and closing in life, that's because of the hinge. If you ever hear of like a rusty door, it's not the door that's rusty, man. It's the hinge that gets rusty. So what the hinge is in our lives, it's going to be that person, moment, or decision that makes all the difference in our lives. It connects who we are with who we're going to become. Again, we just don't know when that's coming. So we might not know the impact. Like, we can't connect the dots in life looking forward. We can only connect the dots looking backwards and seeing the impact that that one person had on our life. We might not know weeks, months, sometimes years later, the impact that that one person had, that one moment had. The part is, and again, it's getting back to the importance of mental toughness, is that hinge. That's what we're preparing for. And when our moment hits, it's too late to prepare. You got to be ready. Tragedies that happen in our life, like real tragedies, these are immediate hinges because from that moment on, everything is different, man. Death of a loved one, cancer, like real important stuff. significant injuries that happen in our life. From that moment on, everything is different. And those are the hinges, man, that connect right away. It's back to the original point, man. It's with the positive things that are going to happen. It only takes one moment, and that's what we're getting ready for.
Damn. Yeah, I remember one of the most powerful hinge moments in my life was 6 years ago when I told my boss at that time, I said, I want to move up into leadership because I started to discover my purpose at this point, right? I knew I wanted to do something different. I knew I wanted to help people. And he looked at me and he's like, there's no way in hell you're going to be a leader in this company anytime soon. And I said, what do you mean? And he's like, well, how can you expect to help other people if you can't even take care of yourself? Because I was 60 pounds heavier at this point. I was in tons of debt. He knew about the debt. I was unhappy with myself because I didn't know what was next, right? So my hinge moment was him saying that to me, which, by the way, is probably one of the worst things anyone's ever said to me. It caused me to feel terrible in the moment. But now I look back and I'm like, oh my God, like, thank God that he said that to me and that he pushed me and he didn't just give me the opportunity right there, because that's what helped me transform my life. And another hinge moment was when I first discovered this world of personal development with people like Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins. And I saw what they were doing and I was like, oh my God, like, this is incredible. I want to be like these people. And it opened up my eyes to what was possible out there in the world. Like, you could work for yourself. You could help people in whatever way that you want to help people. These hinge moments are so powerful. What was the hinge moment for you that led you down the path of what it is you're doing right now?
Yeah, absolutely, man. And good ones, Brandon. And you're doing it, brother. You are helping those people, man.
Thank you.
Love
I
it.
appreciate that.
And that's where I think, like, being told that you're not good enough or like there's no way in hell, it's probably the biggest gift we can be given. Because, like, what would have happened, right, if that boss would have said, yeah, man, just keep working hard, and
Yeah.
not have given you the real honest feedback and be like, wait a minute. You mean I can't? Like, those are the real gifts, even though they're the most painful ones, man. Those are the real gifts that we've been given. And the hinge moment in my life, man, I've had several. We're gonna have many, but it was going to college. And when I was going to college, play baseball, a little D2 school, I had really discovered partying pretty hard, man, in high school. And it was just the town that we lived in. And if it was a class, man, I mean, I would have got an A in that sucker, man. Partying, no problem. So I get to school, right? I mean, I can have baseball and partying and no accountability. Like, let's go. What could possibly go wrong? And so my hinge moment was, we are partying near this bridge in West Virginia. Near this bridge is this cliff, and I end up walking off this cliff. Walked off an
Whoa.
80-foot cliff, hit once, and I'm laying at the bottom of like this crevasse, and they have to crane me up out of it, take me to the hospital. My mom's a nurse. I was conscious during the whole time, man. And I had broken my arm, fractured my back, big gaping head wound, man, but I was alive. And baseball from that moment on then was done. And now I'm walking around campus of, 5,000 students, and like, now I'm that guy. Like, that's the guy right there. That's the guy right there that fell off that cliff. I never want to be that guy. And so then I was that guy, man, and completely lost, had no idea what I was going to do. I thought my 84-mile-an-hour fastball was going to get me to the major leagues. And if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have taken that psychology class. And boom, hinge moment.
Wow.
Because our worst moments, and this is the thing that's fascinating in life, our worst moments end up becoming our best moments. And I'm still fascinated by that in life, but that's exactly true, man.
That's powerful. So you think that psychology class was really, in a sense, the catalyst that's led you down this path of human performance and mental toughness, working with all the people that you've worked with?
Yeah, I'm glad you followed up on that because I didn't elaborate. Yeah, it was when I took that psych class, I knew right away, this is what I want to do for my life, man. I'm going to incorporate, somehow sports and psychology. And then I started studying and figured it out. And it was the one thing, it was the one subject, man, I'm all about, man. I'm all in. And I went to school like pre-physical therapy, something like that. I was like, that'd be cool. But once it gets tattooed in your soul, we talk about purpose, you just know. And that's when I started following, some sports psychologists and said, man, that's what I want to do for my life.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't even know that this field existed when I was in high school. So it's super cool how you started into this world so early in your life. I mean, it explains how you've already worked with so many people while also doing it yourself at the same time. You talked about the journey and the importance of the journey versus the outcome. We've talked about that a lot already, but there was a quote in the book where you went really into talking about the importance of the journey. And the quote was, results are like the sun. We can glance at it, but we can't stare at it. So this idea of the journey, like people just think, I want to lose weight. I want to weigh this much. I want to make this amount of money. And then they start doing it and they don't see the immediate result and they stop, right? And I mean, New Year's resolutions, I think you might have mentioned this, like 90% of people fall off within like the first month and a half. So my question to you is for the everyday person who has a modest goal, like they want to look better, they want to feel better, they want to make more money. We already talked about the importance of staying in the present moment, right? And going through that. But what other advice for people would you have about really slowing down to enjoy that journey?
Well, I think the big piece is that it's scary, and it's, I guess maybe it's supposed to be scary in those, but it's like, look, you're going to be making changes, and our mind doesn't want to make changes. Our mind wants to be safe. Basically, it. When we understand that, we know like where the enemy is and how we're going to combat it. The big thing, and this is the key. This is what I really think the key is. I think if we were able to comprehend this and get this, everyone would accomplish their New Year's resolution if it was an achievable goal. And I hate achievable goals. I'm not in the goal setting really and stuff like that. But for purpose of the discussion, hopefully this will make sense. Is that it's about the lapse. It's not about the collapse. The fact of New Year's resolutions, man, it's going fine. I want to lose 10 pounds. I'm going to the gym every day, drinking lots of water. Bam, life's on straight. And then what happens? Life happens. Kid gets sick, can't go. I get sick. And it's not about the setback. It's about the comeback. Can you show up the next day? And that's the piece that I think trips us up, is the fact of there are going to be bad things that happen here. What happens after that? Meaning that because you're on a diet and you eat a piece of cake, what happens is we throw up our hands and we say, shit, man, see, I blew it. I know I couldn't do it. All the past failures that we ever had, like that whole like fall down 7, get up 8, like that's great. It's wonderful. They never tell us that when you fall down for the 7th time, you think about the 3rd and the 4th time that you fell down and how that impacted how you feel about yourself and your whole identity. That's the real problem there. So the fact of when you make a mistake, when you have that setback, it affects your whole identity and you're like, screw it, I blew it. Well, that's not the reality at all. The reality is that you made a mistake. It's okay. It's how you show back up. And that's the piece, man, is if we can realize that when I'm going to have a setback, not if, when I'm going to have a setback, I'm going to get back on it. I'm going to show back up the next day. Back to that boxing coach, right? Staying with it, staying on top of it, knowing that the setback is not going to define me, that it's about the comeback. And when we realize that, then I think the game is really taken care of, man, if we just keep showing back up. So, and in some of my training runs here, man, I'm getting throwing up, had a 50 mile as a goal, and I'm at 32, man, and I'm done for the day. And I'm like, man, I really don't want to be walking 20 miles here because I got nothing left in me. And looking at myself in the mirror and like, man, are you going to be able to do this race? Because should you not do it? Even though the goal wasn't accomplished that day, man, the rally was important. Show back up the next day, man, and ran another 20. And it's about being able to come back. And that's what it gets back to, man.
Damn. That voice, because I have a couple follow-up questions to that. That voice, when you look in the mirror and you hear, are you going to be able to do this race? Like, we all have that voice. So do you allow that voice to drive you, or do you tune it out?
I think you have to, you can't tune it out, right? It's not about changing the station necessarily. It's about hearing what that voice has to say. It's And that reason why is because that voice it's going to be part of you. It's part of you, man. A lot of times, it's that little kid that struck out with the bases loaded, that then coach chewed him out. And then they got home and the parents, were asking them like, what were you thinking? And then they get to school and, the teammates were kind of ignoring them. That kid right there, right? That sort of shapes that voice that we're going to have that's going to come up. And you can't deny it because it is part of you. It's about realizing what it is that voice needs to say, listening to it, seeing, okay, where's it coming from, right? Like, what is it that I need right now? What is it that voice is trying to keep me safe? The voice is trying to keep you safe. Voice is trying to say, you're not going to be able to do it. Don't sign up for it. Okay, great. Once you recognize it, though, and you can hear it, it's like, okay, now you get back to no longer listening to yourself. Now you get back to telling yourself. And then it's about telling yourself, okay, well, this is what I'm going to do. So you better you better be happy with it because this is what we're going to get into. And knowing where your own mental demons are going to come from, when you can recognize them, now you're going to be able to combat them. You're going to be able to have a strategy to overcome it. It's about making friends with that voice, not trying to deny it or pretend it's not part of you because it is. And then it's listening to it and then being able to get back to telling yourself. I tell my athletes all the time, quit listening to yourself, start telling yourself. Tell yourself what you're going to do. You tell yourself, quiet that voice down.
Become friends with that voice. I love that. That is so often we hear it and we're like, oh, there it is again. And it's like this enemy that like lives inside. But that perspective switch there of becoming friends with it, but not necessarily listening to it, but understanding it, observing it, being aware that it's there, and then telling yourself, that's powerful, brother. I worked with this guy for a long time. And he was like a top earner on the team. This is when I was training salespeople. This guy, we sold cell phones. This guy was earning $10,000 to $14,000 every single month selling cell phones. It was absolutely unbelievable. And I studied him. And one thing I noticed about him was he kept going until he was told no. Right. And that's, I think, the biggest part of sales, right? If you're not hearing no, then you're not really selling. You're just kind of giving people what they already asked for. And he would hear no. And when I would watch him when people told him no, and he would just like be looking at them and he'd be nodding his head, right? And he would empathize with them, but then he would say it in a different way, especially if he believed that this was right for them, and he would try again and again. And when he finally saw that they didn't need it or want it or it wasn't right for them at this time, he would move on. And his ability to move on to the next person, that was the reason he was so successful. Because then I watch other people who they make $5,000 to $7,000 a month selling phones, right? And they're good, but when they're told no, they come in the back room and they hang out for 30 minutes and they're like, I just got to recoup after that. I got to recoup. Oh, I didn't really like dealing with that person, right? The most successful people in that business specifically, and in a lot of sales, is the person who can be told no and then just take the next customer that walks through that door or continue to make the phone call. And it's the person who's really able to recalibrate fast and rally fast. That's the most successful.
It is, man. And that skill of refocusing, right? Being able to let it go and move on. It's huge.
Yeah.
And what does that do, right? The person that can take the no and move on without a loss of enthusiasm, it's revealing their level of confidence that they have in themselves, man. They still believe in themselves and they know that they can help other people.
That's really what it is. You're right. It really is that self-confidence and that belief that you have what it takes and that you're just going to continue on. When you mentioned goals earlier, I want to touch on this because I found that really interesting. You said if the goal is achievable, and then you said, well, I don't even like talking about goals in that way. Yeah. So how do you see goals?
It's a good one, man. And here's the problem. Like, I don't have anything necessarily wrong with goals. My problem is that we get too caught up in trying to make sure we're setting the right goals, and we use the horrible acronym of SMART goals, which I can't stand because it's kind of going against the whole. Imagine if Martin Luther King said, "Hey, I have a goal," right?
Yeah.
You have to have a vision. You got to have a vision about where it is that you want to go, what it is that you want to achieve, what it looks like, what it feels like. And then it's just really just getting back to your priorities. Short term, man, make it to the fence. All right, short term is right. I need to make 10 calls today. And then it's just getting back to priorities. So the priorities over goals is where I really emphasize it. And it's like, if you think about priorities, that's more of like the process goals thing. And it's emphasizing the process about what we're trying to do. The outcome takes care of itself as long as we're not staring at the sun. And that's the piece where it's just too often we get caught up in the goal, the goal, the goal. And when we get off, it's really affecting then the whole journey about what we're able to do, where champions can adjust, man. Champions adjust. And it's about finding a way. And you keep finding the way, you're adjusting, man. You're tacking the whole, along the path, man. It's like if you look at a boat race, this is a big boat race. Like life isn't a marathon either. It's a 100-mile trail race, man. It's probably longer than that. The
Yeah.
fact of, if you look at it like a boat race, man, boats are off course 99% of the time. How do they get back on course, man? Continually tacking, adjusting to the wind, man. Tacking, tacking, tacking. That's what we need to do. That's why I'm not the big fan of like these outcome goals. You got to have a vision. And then it's getting back to their priorities, man. And okay, what is it that this week I want to accomplish? What do I need to focus on today? Then it's back to priorities. And that's the piece that I think really drives it. You have the goals, you have the outcome goals, and we get too focused on that stuff, and it hinders us when it starts to go bad.
Well said. And I think it goes back to what we talked about at the very beginning, where you have the vision of completing the race. And then your goal is, I'm going to get to that next tree. Okay, my next goal is I'm going to get to the road, and then I'm going to get to this bend here, right? It's those mile markers on the way to realizing that vision almost. The goal isn't the end all be all. The goal is what brings you to the realization of that vision.
Yeah, and it is, man. It's like, if I really stop and think about, dude, 100 miles, like you've never ran over 50. Okay, if you think about it that way, well, yeah, then it really becomes overwhelming, and that's where I think a lot of people get tripped up, man. It's like, well, yeah, no, I can't do it. Or we start, getting ready to get ready, waiting for that perfect moment, when really you just got to make it to the tree, right? Look, you just got
Yeah.
to do one loop. Can you do one loop? Yeah, I can do that. And then we reevaluate and let's see where we are, man. And that's the piece that I think is important.
I agree. And there's one other main topic I wanted to talk to you about. And
Do
you
it.
mentioned how, you're talking about athletes and performers, and you've mentioned how one small mistake can cause a catastrophe for even the greatest athlete or even the greatest performer. So when it comes to those small mistakes that can make a big difference when it comes to these high performing individuals, how can you plan for this and prepare ahead of time so that you don't make the mistake, or you're able to, how can you prepare to rally? Is that a thing?
Well, I think preparing a rally, if you think about a rally, you can think about a political rally. If you think about a rally in tennis, if you think about a rally just of people getting together, it involves other people. It really does. So, in the moment of high pressure athletics, it's going to vary in terms of what the context is and what the situation is. But it is about being able to refocus in life, that we don't have necessarily that immediate outcome of holding up the trophy every day. That how do we have that support that's going to be set up around us that's going to be able to help us rally? The importance of hiring Brandon as a coach is because you need that set up before that crisis is going to hit. Because once the crisis hits, man, it's too late to prepare, buddy. You're going to, go down that path that you don't want to go down. And who knows how far that rabbit hole goes. If you have the coach in your life, if you have the support network set up, then you're going to be able to withstand a lot more of the storm and a lot more of the setbacks that happen. That's the point about being able to rally, man. It involves other people. Connection is what builds confidence, and confidence is what builds courage.
Damn. Yeah, I remember what you wrote. There was a whole chapter dedicated to other people and connection and the people that you surround yourself with. And we all heard the quote, "We are the 3 to 5 people we spend time around." And I think that's powerful in the sense of it builds you up being around other people. And that in itself really is one of the best forms of preparation in that way. Let's talk about those people who they're out in the world. They lack a degree of mental toughness. they're simply mediocre at this point. But there's that one in the crowd, the one who's listening right now, who says, I've had chapters of my life where I've given up, and I don't finish any book that I start reading. I don't make any further steps towards my vision, but I want to get better. I know I'm capable of it, and I'm ready to make a change. How can someone like that shock their system, or how can someone like that begin to build their mental toughness? Is there a routine? Is there a strategy? What would you recommend to that person?
It's a good one, man, because it's pretty broad, right? What I think is that you start getting some wins. Let's get some wins. And whatever that win is going to look like, man, like every day this week, run 1 mile, whatever it is, man. I mean, that's why the book, like Make Your Bed, it's a bestseller, right? Make Your Bed. Well, because once you start to make your bed every day, boom, you're starting off with a win, but now it's showing you that, look, you can do something. What happens is we set a goal here, goal here, goal here, goal here, and we accomplish all of them pretty mediocre at best. You got to get one thing that you're basically focused on, one thing, and direct your attention to that, knowing that setbacks are going to happen, but let's see how much momentum we can kind of create going. And then momentum, man, it's huge, right? Because if you're biking, you don't need to keep pedaling when you're going down the hills, man. You just coast on that sucker, buddy. That's what we're trying to get. We're trying to get that momentum going in life. And we get the momentum through those wins, man, and being able to show us. Too often we'll have the wins. Bam, we have that big defeat. Then that's the only thing that we want to stare at. When that's where, coaches come into play, man, are able to help you refocus on what you're supposed to do. But that's what I think, man, is set the important piece. What's the main thing that we're really trying to focus here? Other things then start to line up. Just because we're focused on that one thing and taking care of that.
Well said. I like that concept of just get some wins under your belt. And I have a program that it just ended. We're about to run it again. It's called the Be Better Boot Camp. And one of the factors of the boot camp is every day, except for Saturday and Sunday, you post your wins in the Facebook group. And you post just one thing you did today that has brought you closer to where it is you want to be. How did you win today? What made you feel great today? And at the end of the boot camp, I get with every person individually and I ask, what was one of the most impactful pieces for you here? And they say, the community's great. They said, but I loved just asking myself at the end of each day, how did I win today? Mm-hmm. Right? What did I do today to move me in that direction? And they said that was one of the most impactful pieces. And I listened to that and I was like, that is so simple. But like you said, simple can be the most powerful.
Yeah, well done, man. I love it too.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. And I want to talk to you.
You talk about in your book, it's like, look, if you have, amount of debt, let's pay this one off. Like, let's just focus on this one, right? And then once you get that, right, like what it does for our confidence, what it does for our appreciation, man. So, I mean, that's why I appreciated, just that one part of your book, man, because you really address it.
Yeah, no, the Snowball Effect. Yeah, I got that from Dave Ramsey, and it's the same thing, man. You pay off the one card that has the smallest balance to get the wins. So psychologically, you feel better about it when you could start with the biggest one first. That doesn't feel as good as tackling the smallest one and then moving on to the next and on to the next. So it really is the same thing, and it translates to all different areas. Let's talk one last time about Puke Rally, because I read through the book. Incredible book. That's what most of our conversation's been about today.
Thank you.
What motivated you to write Puke Rally, and who were you looking to reach with this book specifically?
Well, the fact of like everybody pukes. We've all puked. There's not one person that pukes. And it's actually a good thing, man. It gets rid of the toxins. So the fact that we're going to puke in life, regardless of whether it's going to be. But what's really important, man, is that we have the community around us, that we have the confidence, and that we're able to rally on that. So, I mean, it's anybody who's willing to put themselves out there, willing to strive, willing to fight for it. That's who the book was written for. And every book that I write, man, it's really just focused on, I feel that I've got something to say that I can help people out with. That's the main reason why all of my books really get written, man. It's like, look, I feel I can help people out with this. And, if they pick up the book, that they're going to be able to apply this to their life. And that's the truest joy that I get, man. Besides, my kids hold my hand or tell me they love me or something like that. It's when I get a comment from somebody on Instagram just saying, look, man, I read your book, dude, and I finished the 50 miler, or I read your book and, I closed that deal. That's who it's for. And that's the biggest joy that I get from it, man. So it's like, the process of writing is really difficult. It's solitary, man. It's isolating. You know what it's like. It's not like the best process, but when you have the product that's going to be out there that can help people, it's what it's written for, man.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Let me tell you guys, everyone listening right now, this book, I started my day with it for like probably the last couple weeks. And I read 10 to 15 pages. Sometimes I got really into a piece and I read 30 to 40 pages. And it really kickstarted my day in a really great way, because if you're someone who doesn't read right now, I completely get it. I was in that spot. Pick this book up because it's not overwhelming. Like it's not like really small font with like 500 pages. It's an easy read, yet an impactful read. And like we've been talking about, simple's better. And I can guarantee that philosophy went into the writing of this book, and the stories in it are so impactful. The people that you've worked with, the people that you know of and have heard of, and the stories that you put in this book were so powerful, because I teared up reading some of these stories and I wish I wrote them down, but there was some really powerful stuff in this book and it kickstarted my day in a really powerful way. So after I finished this, I actually said to my wife yesterday morning, because I finished it the day before, I had to pick a new book because I read every day. And I was like, I just don't know what book to pick, because this one made me feel a certain way. So for those who want to grab their copy of Puke Rally, go to pukeandrallybook.com, pukeandrallybook.com. The link is in the description. Go grab a copy, read through it, and tag Dr. Rob Bell on Instagram, where you can follow him there as well. So my final question for you is, what is the positive impact that you want to make on the world and other people at this chapter in your life?
The positive impact, or just the impact in general that I want to make on people is, and I see the shift that's happening, and I don't like the shift. What the shift is a lot of times, man, is it's the right to be offended, that I have the right, I can be offended, and it's the right to blame. It's not me, it's them, it's bad coach. And it sticks in my craw, because imagine if we just went through, this week without being offended. Look, I'll tell you what, man, you're going to be better off. Okay. But so much of what happens, man, becomes this noise that we carry in our head, and then it becomes an idea, and the idea then becomes something that we just kind of run with. And maybe not you, right? But it's me. I ruminate on that stuff. And so if we can move past these things, the fact of, look, don't get offended this week by what people are going to say or people are going to do. You focus on what you're trying to do and what you're trying to build. You're going to have a better mental space. And then the other part is, don't blame, right? I mean, I can't stand it when leaders are going to blame other people. When the best leaders are going to say, look, buck stops with me. When you take ownership of that stuff, you own the good and you own the bad. And when you own the bad, it's like, man, where did I go wrong in that situation? Where can I be better? Now we've got a plan on how we can develop ourselves. So, I mean, that's not like my vision for people. It's just, man, we're continually tacking, and I see us moving in this direction too much. Your kid's not good on this team, man. Well, leave that team, buddy. We got to go to another team where you can start. And it perpetuates then throughout society. And that's the part that I see. So it's like, look, my main thing, man, is still helping people get to where they want to go, knowing and helping them develop those skills, those mental toughness skills that you can't see what they look like, man, but when they manifest, and knowing that you're getting ready for that moment that's going to make all the difference. That's what we're preparing for, man. That's what my mission always stays about.
Hell yeah, brother. Hell yeah. That's beautifully said. And I commend you for all the work you're doing. I commend you
think
for...
there'll be people that get offended by that statement?
There's bound to be a few, but you know what? I was offended when my boss told me that there was no way in hell I was going to be a leader. And if I didn't have that hinge moment, I wouldn't be here right now.
Yeah,
so if they were, then you just did them a service by doing so. And I commend you for all the work you're doing, for being out there in the field doing it. And I also thank you because it's people like you who got me in this field in the first place. Thank you very much.
And by the way, man, I loved your book, man. David Van.
Thank you. No, it's awesome that it's in your hands and you're reading through it. And I appreciate the hell out of that. And I thank you for all the time you've given us today. And I look forward to next time, my friend. Crush the 100-miler. You're going to do a fantastic job, man.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it, man.
That was a great conversation with Dr. Rob Bell, the author of Puke and Rally. You can get your copy of Puke and Rally at pukeandrallybook.com. Grab a copy, guys. Read it in the morning. Start your day with it. It made a difference for me. I know it will make a difference for you too. There's tips for you no matter whether you're in the corporate world, you're an athlete. Like Dr. Rob Bell, we're all athletes. We just have different offices, right? We're all in this world of the more we can strengthen our mind, the more we're going to be able to accomplish. And the more we can enjoy the journey on the way, the better we're going to feel throughout. We talked about everything from Dr. Rob's 100-miler coming up here. We talked about his past experiences, how he's grown as a result, how he's rallied, how he's puked, which led him to rally. Just an incredible conversation, and you can read more at pukeandrallybook.com. You always ask how you can support the broadcast. The best way you can support the Be Better broadcast is to share this show with just one friend who needs it. Share it with one person who will take away value from the conversation that we had today with Dr. Rob. And that is more appreciated than you can know, because that is how this show has been able to grow in the way that it has grown. So just share this with one person. That's the price of entry. Only if you got value. Only if you took one thing away, share this with one other person. And as always, thank you so much for listening to this amazing conversation. And until we talk again next time, continue to be better.